From the Studio 13 Studios in Splendora, Texas, Hank's Think Tank is brought to you by the following sponsors.
Quiet on set. Picture is up. All right, roll sound.
Rolling.
Roll cameras.
Cam's rolling.
And 3, 2.
Hey everybody, what's going on? And welcome to Hank's Think Tank. We did a little set change, and you got to try stuff new every once in a while just to shake things up.
A little something different here.
I'm really excited because tomorrow is October the 1st, and for me, it kind of starts the beginning of the holiday season. I like to extend it out because it's my favorite time of the year. Got Mark Hogan on my left.
Howdy, everybody.
And today we have Vlad Debriansky, and Vlad is a Grammy-nominated guitarist. And Mark's going to do the main bulk of the interview here, but we're pretty excited. This guy can jam.
Vlad Debriansky from Ukraine, now an American, specializing in blues, jazz, rock, and classical. Born in Ukraine and came to Boston, the Berklee College of Music, New York. He was an assistant producer. His resume just goes on forever. Grammy nominated for his second solo album, Sun in Capricorn. That was 2007. He also holds a position, artistic board at the Youth Philharmonic. I'll stumble through this in a second. Youth Philharmonic Orchestra in New York at Carnegie Hall. Vlad, welcome.
Thanks. You got your research.
Yeah, yeah.
Those are some really big
It's
words.
this new set,
Mark.
man. I can't get used to it.
Yeah, it is kind of a strange set. It's weird to be holding mics instead of having them in the stand.
Yeah, no kidding. It's something else
I
to
can
think
dig
about.
it, but it's all right. Hey, got a question for you, Vlad.
Yeah.
So that second album that you were nominated for,
Yeah.
what record is that? What label is that on?
That was on Orpheus Music.
Orpheus?
Out of New York City. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, that's
Hey,
all.
you're with Orpheus for about 10 years, is that right?
Yeah, I signed with them in '98, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And then I worked on my debut album. They didn't like it. I mean, they liked it, but they like, oh, it's not good enough. I was working. And then suddenly in 2003, I gave them the demo. I was like, oh, well, that sounds like a record. Okay, let's put it out. So in 2004, we put out my debut album, which was Vladosphere. And it was kind of like smooth jazz, adult contemporary music, all instrumentals, and that album did well. That album made the charts in the States and internationally. And then
Vladosphere. I like it. That's
Yeah,
cool.
perfect
Yeah,
name, isn't it?
It's badass.
I wanted to change the name. I remember something. I was trying to make a pseudonym because I was Ukrainian. I mean, I am Ukrainian, and the executive at that time, Bo Huggins, he says, "No, don't change the name. It sounds cool. It sounds different." I'm like, "Well, it doesn't sound American." He says, "Well, if its music is good, people will learn how to pronounce it." And he was right, basically. And he was the guy who, he was executive at Orpheus. Orpheus was basically an R&B/jazz label. I was the only white guy in the roster. Everybody was black. And then
Were you primarily focused on the blues then?
no, what happened when they signed me up? They signed me up in a very strange way, though. I was assisting producer at the session. They had the studio. It's called South Park Studios in New York. And they're
I've heard of South Park, actually. I have, yeah.
I mean, their recordings. That's basically Melba Moore, Freddie Jackson, tons of R&B, including like Kenny G and things like that.
Right.
So and then and they controlled the R&B charts in the States basically for 30 years. They were a production company. Barry Eastman was their main songwriter who wrote big hits. And they released records through Capitol Records. So it was Capitol Orpheus.
Right, yeah.
And then when I got there, I was an intern out of college and in '98.
Just kind of learning the producing into things.
Yeah. And it's New York. New York is tough,
Sure.
So
if you can make it there. Oh, never mind.
Yeah, exactly. So and they got me to intern there. I was interning at several studios in New York City, and then they got me there, and I got the manager as well. I got the seasoned manager, Ken Greengrass, at that time. He was the guy who was running the Friars Club in New York City, and he was the manager of Paul Simon Garfunkel and Liza Minnelli and all those guys. So he wanted me to have a career with him, sort of like he's managing me, and he introduced me to Phil Ramone, producer, and they wanted me to go with I forgot the label, JRP Records, and then Sony Classical. It was, at that time in the 90s, the record business was healthy.
Right.
And
the music game was way different back then.
It's a lot better for the artists too.
So did you do any session stuff for any of those guys that you mentioned?
As an assistant producer, not as a musician, not as a guitarist.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I remember my first session was Mickey Howard. She was a Grammy winner. It was a song, something Sunshine, if I remember that. And the producer was Supreme. His name was Supreme.
That's a good name to have.
Yeah. Good producer, though.
That's it.
And I was assisting everything in the studio. We had SSL and Neve consoles, then they had 2-inch tapes everywhere.
Oh man, see, God, I'm jealous now.
Yeah.
Just the SSL and the Neve, that's enough.
Yeah,
right there,
that was the game.
Yeah. Do you remember what Neve board you worked on?
I don't remember now.
Yeah.
At that time, I was a kid. I was like 20, maybe 5.
Yeah.
So,
but you touched it.
I worked on it.
He loves Neve.
I took it apart. I patched it all the ways. Oh yeah, all that stuff. I didn't understand this was special. I had no idea.
The SSLs are almost as good too. They're great.
SSL was more digitized.
Yeah.
Neve had this warm, beautiful sound.
Yeah.
And if you record any like analog instruments like guitars, vocals, that's the best.
Right. It just has that warmth, like you said.
You don't have to have anything.
I had a lead on a Neve possible that we could have gotten, and I worked on that for 2 years. And you know the story.
It was almost the second crime we committed.
I know, it was almost larceny was almost involved. And I don't know. I'll ask the guy a couple months ago, but I don't know. It's in storage. These guys bought this Neve 10 years ago. Finally, the guy tells me, well, it's got some problems. I said, we'll find somebody to fix it.
They always do have problems.
Yeah. And then a couple months after that, it was not for sale. So it took 2 years to get to that point. But it's probably still sitting in that garage, mildewing away. And that's not good for anything, much less a Neve.
I sometimes still cry over that. So, but I've got a good board.
Yeah.
It's decent. I think the circuitry's tight, and so it's got a good warm sound to it. It's not a Neve by any means, but I got as close as I could get. And really it's the guy behind the board too. It's not just the board; it's the guy behind it.
In my personal opinion, it's I think the record industry, and not just record industry, the recorded industry, like recorded music industry, is overrated. I think it's about the sound of a musician rather than the sound of a board. At the end of the day, when the listener listens to a record or anything, they don't really care. It's not. It's like I worked in studios that cost $400 an hour, and then I recorded my own personal things on the computer or ADAT. Yeah. I remember, and the sound. People selected the sound that was cheap to record. So it's not about the gear itself. I never had a kind of, I never thought the gear is important. I thought that the musician is important. And then
absolutely.
And then the gear helps obviously to record and to fix the sound,
Right.
But if you look at the records versus now digitized, I would say digitized probably better quality now. Even though it's probably not warm enough and things like that, but that's very kind of cliche thing to say. If you look back at Beatles that recorded mono, right?
Right. And a lot of people prefer the mono instead of the remix too. A lot of that's been mixed into
but the
stereo.
sound, like for example, Benny Goodman. If you listen to Benny Goodman records, they mono with the orchestra, right? Yeah, it sounds like one frequency coming out of it, right?
Right.
But the musicianship is important. So if you think about the recording itself, it's pretty poor compared to what's now.
Right.
But the musicianship is incredible. So, and that's my point. So when you put a focus on the musicianship rather than the technology that delivers it, it's probably that's I think I've always been this way since my childhood, And I like technology. Don't get me wrong, but it's just the focus should be musician, not the need. So that's why when I recorded records at Orpheus at that time in South Park, I remember nobody in the studio, including all those producers, nobody cared about the gear. They all cared about performance. They all cared like, oh, this is nice, and they just did all that stuff.
You can record air on good gear, but you need a good performance. I mean, you're not going to get away with anything.
Well, that's where it starts. It's got to start there.
I mean,
I mean,
for sure.
It's obviously a debate among, especially producers, But at the end of the day, I worked with Bernd Bergdorf. He's a producer and a sound engineer. He's the guy who made Pink recording, that big song. So he recorded it on the simple SM57 microphone in the ADAT, and it was all red. And then
it's clipping all the way through.
Yeah, in the hotel because she was like traveling or something. And that was the only chance he had. And then he gave it to L.A. Reid, who was a producer who was putting it out. And then they went back to the studio, proper studio, when she had time to re-record it. It wasn't the same. So they released that. And everybody knows that.
That overdriven
It's
version.
the same thing with other things that I worked. And not just that. Many, I was producer many years. And I've seen, like, sometimes, like, even, 10 years ago, we recorded, I don't want to say an artist, a big artist, on the iPhone. Because that was the only chance we got.
Well,
and
sometimes you get a happy accident, I guess.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's about the vibe,
Yeah.
Like Benny Goodman again,
Right.
If you have the good musicianship, hey, this all it takes. There was another. I remember back I think it was in New York. Peter Gabriel was very popular at that time, and Peter Gabriel actually recorded. He had tapes. He kind of traveled around the world. He put tapes around kind of different sounds and different groups of ethnic people, and he came to the studio to South Park to do the production, and he told a story about Mike Oldfield, the guitarist.
Yeah,
he said that the Tubular Bells that was released in '77 or something.
I love that instrumental.
Yeah, so that was released and poorly recorded.
The song scared me.
Yeah.
So it was recorded all red because they didn't have budget. They were kids, basically. So it was all poorly recorded, all in red. It's basically bad.
Really?
Yeah. And then Mike Oldfield got rich and famous and all this. And that's like in '94 on Virgin, I think, he tried to re-release Tubular Bells. So he remixed it, redone it with beautiful sound. Everything's correctly done. And he went to the Virgin Megastore at that time. And he had two records. One is the old one, and one is remastered, remixed. Nobody bought remastered, remixed. Everybody was buying the old one.
So did he re-record it, or did he just stage it down?
He re-recorded it.
Oh, wow.
He recorded some tapes he had. He put it down there.
Yeah.
But then everything was kind of like not well recorded, I should say. He re-recorded it.
Wow.
Obviously with more precise technique and things. And, he's a good guitarist anyways. And but that's also the point. The technology is not as important as the artist.
Right.
So.
Yeah, great example.
Yeah.
So you spent a lot of time in New York, and you also got into acting. Is that right? Did I read that somewhere? Vlad, the actor?
Yeah, it's basic. I mean, it's not like that.
Vlactor.
Vlactor.
I like it.
Vladosphere.
No, what happened is I lived in San Francisco, and then I moved there in 2000 after New York City.
Right.
And then in 2004 released this Vladosphere album, right? And I had so the record label hired a publicist, and publicist lived in Los Angeles, and I had to go to do interviews to LA, to XM Radio. Remember, with satellite radio was kind of going up there, and so we went there, and she's like, "All right, I want you to be a cameo." Because it's LA, everything acting is LA.
Sure.
I'm like, what is cameo? I didn't know what it was. But the record was going well on the radio everywhere. I had like 4 hits out of record, which is big. I couldn't drive a car without hearing my music somewhere. I couldn't go to a hotel listening to.
Well, that's got to be a nice feeling.
it's
To know that
kind of nice.
people are hearing your work, you know.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's nice. It's good for the label, I should say that.
Okay.
Right? It's
Yeah.
great for the label. For me, I mean, yeah, thanks, but
Show me some.
right. So, I mean, I had some publishing checks and royalties and all that stuff, but the overall idea is it's a different conversation. So anyway, and she took me to this agent. His name was Cotton, I remember, and he said to me, "Is that the gray hair here?" And I said, "I don't even know. I didn't even paint it. I had no idea." So, and he's like, "Oh, that's a gray hair." And he turns to her. It's like, "Debbie, we can't put him on a cameo unless he colors his hair."
Oh, come on. One gray hair.
Now that does sound like LA to me.
That's very much LA.
Yeah.
So that was my first exposure to LA, and that's what she did. Basically, she told me I should cut because I had to be a cameo on Friends, show Friends at that time. So, and I didn't do the cameo. I went back to San Francisco like, I'm doing all of that.
So educate me. A cameo is they shoot the actor somewhere else and then insert him.
I would be
Like
a
you
guy somewhere in the restaurant playing music or something.
Okay.
That's called the cameo. So, like Tony Bennett did this there too. So basically,
Right.
he kind of sings in the restaurant and they have a set.
Okay.
Kind of like an extra, I guess you
Yeah.
could say.
Yeah.
But extras are
It's like-
usually,
it's called a cameo.
yeah.
So, and then, long story short, after that, I moved to LA in 2007, and I was going shopping for food. And in LA, I'm not sure if you lived in Hollywood. I lived in Hollywood at that time. It's like everybody wants to be an actor, or they have an agent who wants to be an actor, or
Every waiter, every waitress, the guy
every post delivery guy wants
changing
to
your
be an actor.
oil.
Every agent has an agent has an agent, and
Sure.
and then lawyer on top of each other. So basically, it's like that. And I remember I was shopping in the store, and one guy comes to me and says, and I had long hair at that time. He comes to me, "Oh, I have a movie for you." I'm like, "No,
Just
I'm
on looking at you, huh?
not." Oh,
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not an actor. He's like, no, you have to be in the movie. It's about vampire. And I said, no, I'm not an actor. No, you have to do this. So I come out, I sit and eat lunch or something. And another guy comes in. And he says, you have to be in my movie. You have to da. So anyways, he gives me a card. It's like, please call me. Please come to the audition. That stuff. So, and at that time I was dating this girl, and she's like, oh, you should definitely do it. So,
It's always a girl.
yeah. It's good.
Started
And I had a motorcycle. I had a Triumph at that time, and I drove on the Triumph with my helmet to the audition.
You messed up your hair.
Exactly.
Oh.
So I went there, and it was a big line. I had no idea that's how auditions are going. It's like a big line, like 20, 30 people, with a script.
They all look
hands.
like you.
I don't know how it worked. Well, they all had resumes. They were professional actors.
Right.
There's like acting there, and like nothing. And I'm the last one. So basically I was late. And I'm sitting with my helmet, and like everybody's looking at me why I'm not dressed up properly.
Right.
Like so, and they do, that's how they do it. They have the screen test, what's called. They have producers and directors, blah blah blah. So, and it was A&E Entertainment. I remember that. So, they invited me, and it's like, we want you to be either Isaac Newton or Leonardo da Vinci. And I'm like, what is this for? It's like, oh, this is going to be a great documentary about those guys on the History Channel or Discovery Channel.
I
something
thought
like
you
that.
were going to be a vampire.
No. So, and I'm like, okay, what do I do? I have no idea.
So they said, read this.
Yeah, it's like, read this, look there, say this, and they have like lines,
Yeah.
And they film everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's a professional studio, LA studio.
Yeah, because those producers are going to show it to the rest of the producers later.
Exactly. So, and they I have no idea what's going on, and I'm not an actor. I have no idea how to look at the camera, things like that, So, and they had lines, and I said whatever they wanted me to do, And then after that, they said, thank you, that was great. We'll call you. I'm like, well, thanks. That was kind of weird. I'm like, oh, this is how it's done. Like, nobody shakes hands. Like, whatever. Okay, just go.
Just there's the
Okay,
door.
so I went and sort of forgot about it. And then in about a week or even less, I get a phone call, from those guys. Like, is that Vlad? Yeah. It's like, we would love you to come to the office. I'm like, what is it for? We want to talk to you about this audition that you do. I'm like, yeah, I'm busy. I'm like, yeah, please come, blah, blah, blah. So, anyways, about a week later, I come there. And there were two guys, and they said, we want to offer you the role of Leonardo da Vinci. I'm like, what? Where? It's like, well, this is a role. We're going to shoot a series. It's called Da Vinci Armageddon. So Da Vinci Armageddon, basically Armageddon about what his visions were about the future of the Earth and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, smart guy. Yeah, Da Vinci's.
He wrote a lot of stuff down.
And he's like, we want you to do this. Sign these papers. You're gonna be our guy. And I have no idea. It's like, do you have an agent? I'm like, no. And they're happy that I don't have anything of that, right?
Yeah.
Because nobody's negotiate anything. I'm like, yeah, whatever,
Just write me the check, and we'll be fine.
Yeah. And at that time, I actually met an actor, Patrick Bergen, who became actually my kind of partner in crime because we did the record together. But he was a Hollywood actor. He was with Julia Roberts in big movies and things like that. He's Irish, but he sings blues and all. So and I told him, he's like, oh, do it. So I went and signed the papers. Whatever the royalties they will pay me. I didn't even go to nothing. It's like everybody goes to lawyers, agents, and things like that.
Right.
I just signed it. So they asked me for the set.
That's what I'd have done. I'd have just signed it and said, "Here's my signature. Where's my check?"
Yeah. And it was kind of experience for me, So they did this shooting. It's all on green screen and a lot of things. I spoke to two scientists who talked about the Da Vinci's background, biography, in order for me to understand what was going on in his head, right? And we kind of talked about 2 weeks about it. So they were telling me there was one guy from Oxford University, another from Cambridge, and they told me about Da Vinci, what was going on, how he was thinking. So this is how they do it. So and I was like, okay, this is interesting.
How many days on set were you filming? I mean, you had a big part in this.
Yeah, it was that set. I had to cut the cadabras, because he was basically doing every science possible. That guy.
Right. Yeah, he did a lot of that too. Yeah.
All of that. So and obviously the helicopters and the visions, and then he had the fear of water because he was in Venice, and there was a flood when he was a boy. And he thought Venice was going to be completely drowned. He went to the King of France. There was a lot of interesting things there. Actually, I learned a lot. That was kind of a good experience. And, and they filmed it, I think, for a week or two. So I was going at 6 o'clock in the morning, which I never do, but that's how they do it. So, and then there was one story I remember. I was producing this artist for Eurovision. Eurovision is like a big festival in Europe. And she came to LA, and I had a convertible car at that time. So we're driving on Sunset Boulevard, which is like a central street. And we go in, we're standing on the light. And she's talking to me. It's like all of a sudden, it's like, what is that? I'm like, what is it? And there's a huge billboard. History Channel, Leonardo da Vinci Armageddon, in my face.
Your face?
Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And I'm like, ooh. And I start to hide because people are, around me. I don't want to be. So, because LA is like.
Trying to get Da Vinci's autograph.
Yeah, Da Vinci. So, and then it came out and it was all over the world. To this day, I was 2 years ago in Italy, and I go to a hotel, and there you go. And it's like,
well, that's cool.
It's going everywhere.
There you were, just walking along in the streets of LA, and the next thing you know, bam.
But yeah, I mean, it's like that in LA in the sense, if you want to, I mean, you don't have to have a special talent, I should say that. It's if you look good on the screen and on TV.
But you couldn't wait to get back to your guitar
years ago
playing.
in the Dean Martin days and all those guys, they had to know how to sing, dance, speak.
Absolutely.
They had to know how to act, all that.
Yeah, because they come
couldn't
from
get away with that back then. You had
they
to know
come from the theater. Now it's all about the right face.
If you look good
on the green screen, where it's like Armageddon,
right? Yeah,
and you're the hero.
Yeah.
Right? So it's all. I mean, I guess the only people who I could say are talented are the writers, because they make stories.
Right. They create the story. Yeah.
Yeah, and then even the directors know it's all about, what you said about the equipment. It's all about the equipment.
Right.
It's all about the lighting, correct lighting. The only I remember in my experience, what I've seen, the DPs are kind of talented, which is basically they see how it would look like. Right,
like a storyboard, just kind of putting together the visuals.
The director of photography,
yeah.
the DP. So basically, they look at how it will look like, and I remember how they film it, and I went to look behind how it looks like, and it's terrific. And they hire like Italian guys, usually like Italian, Polish guys, but people don't know it. Hollywood just hires like Europeans.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
And then walks.
Because apparently
Vladimir the Ukrainian.
School of digital photography and movie is like European is like the best.
Yeah, I would think so.
And they hire them. A lot of it.
Well, what a fun thing. It just kind of fell into your lap.
I've learned this by chance, I didn't know all of that stuff. I'm a musician, so I didn't know these. It's kind of by chance. And then, I had some friends who were in movies, but, some directors, some actors, but it's the same thing. I mean, I'm not a fan of Hollywood, to say it least, but that's how it is. It's entertainment.
That was a really cool thing. Well, let's get back to Vlad, the guitar player.
Yes, please.
And so you're born in Ukraine.
Yes.
And how did you get into music over there? Did it just was it just something in your teens you thought it was cool, or you really felt it?
Well, I was born during the Soviet Union, right? So the Soviet Union was under sanctions for 75 years or something like that, right? So that meant that I was limited to my information around me, and we couldn't leave the Soviet Union, sort of like North Korea, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right.
So
fences to keep people in. Right.
Right. So Soviet Union was 15 different countries inside. So Ukraine is one of. And I'm from western part of Ukraine, right, which was Poland before Austria and things like that, and then Ukraine before that. So it has kind of like cultural pot there, right? Mm-hmm. And then what happened is when I was growing up, in my family, my dad loved Louis Armstrong, and Louis Armstrong was not censored in Soviet Union, so we had records of Louis Armstrong. That's the only thing that was not censored.
I wonder why Louis Armstrong wasn't censored.
I don't know.
That's odd.
Everything else, like Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, that was...
I'll bet you.
You couldn't see that.
Especially Pink Floyd. I can dig it.
Degenerate, yeah.
And then, my mom loved classical music. She was she knew how to play piano, guitar, everything.
There's some beautiful Russian music. I've heard it. It's amazing.
I mean, I like personally. I like Ukrainian folk music, and I like some of the composers, like for example Mussorgsky. He's great. I mean, there's a lot of Ukrainian folk music that people don't know. Like for example, "Summertime." That's a Ukrainian tune. Right? People have no idea. It's a lullaby.
Yeah.
So or for example, the Christmas song, the da 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 da.
Right.
Yeah. That's
from the Nutcracker, right?
No, that's not from that.
No,
Nutcracker. That's Tchaikovsky. That's basically a Ukrainian tune for the spring, right? But it moved. I mean, the lyrics were remade here in English and became a Christmas tune, right? But this is a Ukrainian tune. So a lot of these Ukrainian tunes, people don't know, is part of American culture.
Wow.
So
right, it is.
And
yeah.
which is big, Gershwin himself, who wrote the Porgy and Bess, his grandfather was from Kiev and Odessa, right? That's where his heritage. And when he was commissioned to do kind of a Broadway, like blues jazz Broadway, which was kind of a unique thing at that time during the Depression, he went to East Village in Ukraine, and that's where he's like wanted to know what is that good Ukrainian folk tune I can incorporate.
Right.
So and Ой ходить сон під сонцем, that's під вікнами, that's the song that he based for the Summertime.
So when did you know guitar?
I can play it for you. I can show you how.
When did you know that? And I will let you do that. When did you know that guitar was going to be your instrument?
Great question. I just had this conversation recently. I actually was a drummer. I was fascinated with drums.
Isn't it a hell of a coincidence? Almost
Happens
everybody
a lot.
we talked to started on drums. Just like me, before I sucked on guitar, I sucked on drums.
Yeah,
And I've never once hit a drum set. Never once.
I personally drummed everything, pots and pans in the house. Right. And then what happened, I think it was about 13 or 12 years old. I mean, I took guitar, kind of strum it, and kind of played a little bit of things, but it didn't interest me. I was very much into the drums. And at that time, I loved listening to Eagles. The Eagles and Hotel California, that album. And also
mid-70s. So that wasn't banned where you were?
I mean, it was banned in Soviet Union, but we had the black market because I was by the border.
Right. There's always a black market.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we had that album and then the Lone Run album. And I love those two albums. And we had it reel to reel. We didn't have records.
I tell you what.
Reel to reel's better anyway.
Yeah.
75, 76, you could not get away from the Eagles, man, with the Long Run and Desperado and all that stuff was just over and over and over again.
I didn't like that, the greatest hits of Eagles. I actually thought it was not my music. But the Hotel California and the Lone Run, which is better album even, I liked that.
Right.
That was talking to me, So the kind of like more countryish stuff, that didn't click with me.
No.
Because it was very simple music-wise.
What did you think about the addition of Joe Walsh?
Oh, he's a great guy. I met him in L.A. We talked quite a bit about things. He is an incredible guy.
He's hilarious, too. He's got a great sense of humor,
Yeah, I've seen him on interviews and just talking. He seems like a real down-to-earth guy that you could be a friend with.
He is a great guy. He hates the Eagles. He plays with them. He hates them.
Yeah.
So, he's a great riff guy. People don't know, for example.
Oh, yeah, he's riff master
for example, the Gibson that was given to, what's his name? Led Zeppelin, I forgot the name.
Jimmy Page?
Jimmy Page.
Mm-hmm.
That was Joe Walsh who gave it to him as a present.
Right. I read that.
Before that, he didn't have a Gibson. It was too expensive, and they didn't exist in England.
Right.
So the Fender was cheap, so you can get the Fender Strat or the Tele, but the Gibsons were expensive.
Right.
So Joe is the guy who gave the famous now. What's
Yep.
called,
Well,
true story.
And there's a lot of stories like that. So he's kind of a good-hearted guy, and then he's very talented. I mean,
yeah,
that's all
he's
his
great.
riffs.
Yeah.
I saw him on an interview one time, and he says, these 4 notes, dun, 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 dun. If you record those 4 notes, you can retire.
Yeah,
Rocky Mountain Way.
Yeah, there is a joke about that in musicianship. If you play, there is a joke. A guy wants to play bass, comes to the teacher and says, "Can you teach me the bass?" Like, well, here it is: 1st chord, 4th chord, 5th chord, the root, boom, 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 boom. Okay, got it. So go practice. Come back. Well, I'll show you more. Then the guy never came. Then he meets him in 10 years. Like, why didn't you come? Oh, I'm so busy. I have so many gigs.
Yeah, with those 4 notes, right?
That's it. That's all it takes.
Joe Walsh is Ringo Starr's son-in-law too.
Yeah. They have the sister. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Married Ringo's daughter.
Yeah.
I'll be damned.
Yeah. And
Well, the Eagles were the backing band for Linda Ronstadt.
Ronstadt, yeah.
That's where they got all their country roots from.
Yeah, I mean, they got storytellers, But as far as the musicianship, I mean, I think Joe Walsh brought something that I loved about the Eagles.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So
I like to pick out his parts when I'm listening.
Yeah, exactly. All those riffs, all those great rhythms, great ideas. I mean, he's a funky guy, So he brought that in, and that's what made it cool. I mean, Hotel California. If you look at the not the lyrics, but the melody, right? It's a kind of classical melody, goes 5 down by harmony wise, like a box.
Tough to play.
It's really easy to play.
Not for me.
Oh, see, L shows. But the thing is,
but 3 Blind Mice is hard for me. I'm having a hard time with it. But I've almost got it perfected.
I'll show you a couple of tricks. So what happens is the harmony is very Bach-like, right? The rhythm section very reggae.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, it's got a beat.
Right? And then the guitar picks, basically how it's strummed, it's very flamenco. So, and that became a very international sound. If you think about it, I don't think they did it on purpose. They just felt it.
It just happened. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Wow.
and that is why that song is very huge. And then, not to mention the solos. Obviously, nobody is doing solos on guitar now. But imagine the solos then.
The days of lore.
Yeah. So
Glory days.
yeah. So that's the Eagles. Oh, the drums. I didn't ask the question. So at 12, we had a band in school. It was a trio: guitar, bass, and a drum. And we wanted to play one of those Eagles songs out of Lone Run. I'm not sure. I forgot already which one.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned my part. I did all of that stuff. And the guitar player couldn't play the solo, right? And I was mad at him. I was like, why can't you play the solo? It's simple. It's simple. Why? I hear in my head it's simple.
So you showed him how to play it.
No, not yet. And he got mad at me. He's like, well, yeah, you think you can play it? Well, here we go. And I'm like, I don't know how to play guitar. He's like, well, there you go. And I said, well, give me it for 2 days. I'll learn it. I'll show it to you. So like, okay, be my guest. So I went back home. I got his guitar. I listened to the tapes and okay. I have no idea of techniques and none of that. I'm basically, okay. And he's bending a lot and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's pretty cool, So, and I go to the rehearsal and I show it to him. Well, here, how you play it. And I'll show it to you. And I'll give it to him. And they look at me like, how do you know how to play guitar? And I said, I don't play guitar. It's like, well, no, you should be a guitarist. I'll play the drum now.
Oh, man.
And they made me a guitarist. I was mad, actually, because I thought, I want to be a drummer.
Yeah.
But then there was another drummer came, and he was so good. I'm like, oh, my God, I will never play this. Okay, I'll stick to the guitar. So that's how it happened. But guitar was very easy. It was effortless. I never even thought.
So you learned that solo in one night, a couple hours.
Yeah.
And
I remember I went to, I found a teacher, a guitar teacher in my town, who played like Gary Moore things.
Awesome. Yeah.
Right, but he also knew some jazz, which is kind of like, what is jazz? He showed me John Scofield tapes, and I'm like, oh my God, what is that sound? It kind of like circus music, but it sounds cool,
Yeah.
So I wanted to learn all of that. And he's like, oh, no, that's just for advanced people. You can't do this. I was like maybe 15, 14. He's like, well, how about this? Well, here's the score notes for Bach. Learn that, come back to me in 6 months.
So are you reading music at this time?
No.
Can he show you a sheet and say, learn that?
No, he was just trying to brush me off.
Right.
So
you went home, learned it in a couple hours, and said, this is what Bach plays.
Not a couple hours. I went back home. I understood which notes are which notes. Then I took the guitar and I tried to figure out, it took me about 2 weeks to figure out the notes to the guitar, right? And then I started playing. And then and then in 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, I came back to him. He's like, I'm ready. He's like, no, you're not. I'm like, yes, I am.
You blew him away, didn't you?
And he's like, all right, sit down. Okay, do it, And I started playing. He looks at me. It's like, how do you know? It's like, well, you gave me the notes. I said I want to learn jazz and blues. Bach is easy. So he looks at me. He's like, I graduated from college. It took me like years to learn this piece. I'm like, well, it's easy because I showed him the way I saw the guitar. The problem was, and to this day, people see guitar in a very academic way. Because I was playing by ear,
right,
and nobody showed me how to select proper, I should say.
Yeah, you didn't go through all the math of the whole equation.
None of that. Right. So basically, I figured out my own vision of the neck, right, and it was easy. Because the guitar is very easy instrument. On the piano, you have black and white notes, and you have to. The moment you shift a key, you have to kind of see where you add.
Right.
On the guitar, it's all the same. It's all the same frets, number of frets.
This is like that.
There are two frets here, one fret here, 2 frets here, and that's all distances in frets. It's as simple as that. So if you figure out, and then also the guitar, like the piano, has one note on one key, one sound, right, like a frequency of that note, and that's it. On the guitar, you have 5 positions for the same note, right? So if you think about it, then multiply that, and then you have your own system. And by doing so, then the guitar becomes not that complicated. Then you think about music, not about the guitar. how to create a melody, how to create something unique, not how where to find this note, which is majority of guitarists are struggling with.
Right.
So it's not about the thinking of music. They can't even hear the music because they're trying to figure out what the hell is this note, right? And that becomes frustrating because that's what's holding them back from being a musician, So I personally, I'm still learning guitar, obviously, all the time, but I'm learning from my head. I don't need to have a guitar with me. I hear it and that would be a great idea.
So you can work it out in your head.
Oh yeah.
And then once you get to your instrument, you can.
I want to,
okay,
for example, I had a couple of songs that I made in my head, and I just took guitar and recorded it. I never even practiced it. So it's all here. So if you hear in your head and you know what it is, it's like, yeah. And then on the piano, I can do the same thing. It only takes time to. This is the note.
Right.
This is the note. On the guitar, I see the neck very, very simple way, and boom, right away, boom, and it doesn't require any time. It's just basically faster. That's what
Right.
Cool.
Well, that's why they call him a virtuoso.
And so these days you're teaching, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been teaching now here.
Wow. And how do you like that?
50-50.
Yeah. So you're teaching kids or adults or both?
Everybody.
Wow.
Yeah. So what happened is since the war in Ukraine, right? I had a school there.
Okay. Yeah.
And the thing is, before the school, I didn't think I'll be teaching. It just happened. I lived in LA and I was bored out of Los Angeles, and I was producing an artist who was from Ukraine at that time.
Okay.
You called it the American Music Academy.
Yeah,
Or is that
American
right?
Music. Yeah. And I was approached by my friend Peter Gordon. He was a vice president of a professional department of Berklee College of Music in Los Angeles. And he's like, why don't you spin off the Eastern European kind of branch of Berklee?
It's a good idea.
And I thought, hey, I never thought, maybe it's a good idea. So then I met with Roger Brown, who's the president of Berklee, and he's like, yeah, go ahead. If you want to do it, go ahead. We'll support you. So, and I told this to this artist I was producing, and she's like, oh, yeah, we would love that. Let me introduce you to the mayor. So I went to Kyiv, and I met the mayor, and, maybe they can help me with buildings or something. I had no idea. I never did this school before. So I kind of started doing this, and then I wanted to open maybe in Krakow or Sweden, but then at that time, a lot of Eastern Europeans couldn't get the visa to Europe, so you had to kind of create a facility that's a lot of people can come. And Ukraine was
about
perfect.
What year was this?
2013.
Okay.
2013. So I went to Ukraine, and I put my own money into it. Then I got a partner, and we rented first a building, did the whole preparation, then marketing, the whole thing. I've learned the business from that. And then we did the outreach programs to the government, a lot of different things, scholarships, you name it. So, and we did, sort of like, it's kind of like a college/prep school, right? Preparation for college.
Right.
But at the same time, we had from 13 years old to 80, and all different departments, like the performance department, which is basically instruments, singing, and all that, songwriting, composition, music production, things like that. And then
What an operation.
we had we had the full-blown studio for production, how to learn it correctly. We had professors we hired. Some of them were online, some were coming. Our advisors were Tom Rothrock, who was a producer who produced Foo Fighters, Nirvana, Moby, Gwen Stefani, Beck, you name it. And then
What a resume.
yeah, musicians. For example, Jerry Brown, the drummer for Stevie Wonder or Diana Ross right now. So, he's from Stanley Clarke era. So all these guys we kind of brought on board, sort of create the level of expertise that kids would not otherwise be having access to, right?
Right.
So, and then we put the program behind it. So it was very good school. We actually had a lot of Americans come in and study because it was cheaper and better.
Yeah. Okay.
So they came there, and we had a special kind of unit for the English-speaking class. So we had that, and then we opened one location, then 2 locations in Kiev, then 1 location in Lviv. So we had 3 locations. And then we went to Krakow. They asked us to do the program for Jagiellonsky University. It's like a jazz program. And then we did master classes and things like that.
Right.
So that was kind of the thing. So it took me away from my touring, producing to making records and things like that to like education.
Running in the school. Yeah.
Yeah, and
I love it. That's cool.
Yeah, so that's what we did. So and then right before the war, we had a 4-story building opening up, and we were preparing for the new semester. And then I had a partner who was a builder, but they were interested in making a big kind of concert performance center with the school. So
Right.
Sort of making sure that interesting. It's not just the commercial side of it. It's basically if you talented and there's interesting ideas.
Mhm.
There you go.
They could showcase
Yeah,
what they're
exactly
doing.
right.
Yeah.
And people can go and buy tickets and things like that. Right. So it's basically creating a platform for creativity in the music sense. Right.
Right.
Yeah. So that's what we did, and we kind of opened it up. I sort of liked it as well because I never thought by teaching you learn a lot. So, and I was teaching, and the questions I got, I never thought about them.
Right.
Right, and it kind of improved my playing, to be honest with you. It's like, oh, all right, well, this is a good idea. Well, this is how you do it,
Mhm.
right? And
You're always learning, like you said.
yeah. So it kind of was a good relationship between me and the students. I mean, we had 25 different professors, right? So. But the students, in the class we had about 12, 13 students in the class, right? So, and 250 students per semester. So, and we had that enrollment going. And then, and then our graduates, actually a lot of them went to the States after that. They got accepted like to UCLA, to music school, to Herbie Hancock School,
Mhm.
on the full scholarship. Whole thing.
Anybody ever hit big or
Joe Bonamassa.
Joe Bonamassa? Huh? I don't think so.
It'd be nice. Hey, I just like throwing out his name,
Joe Bonamassa, yeah. So some of our students became artists, stars.
Mm-hmm.
Some producers, some the ones from the States, they become producers. They live in Atlanta. We kind of speak.
Right.
And then now we have like a brand new star coming out of that. The thing is, when the war started, we helped a lot of our students to move to Europe.
Right.
Right. Especially females, because they could.
Yeah.
Right. So we moved them to England, a lot to England. And we talked to some studios. They actually they lived in many studios
Mm-hmm.
in England.
Wow.
And that's how we have it. Like, for example, Isabella, there is a upcoming star. She's nailing right now. So she's basically based in England now. She's going. She goes back and forth to Kiev and England all the time. I mean, there's a lot of. We created this culture of musicianship and creativity. Without it's like this. Everybody is in a community and they support each other as musicians. At the same time, they all care about the knowledge, the mastership of music. It's nothing to do with, how should I put it? It's not like a school to get a job. It's a school to create a job.
Right.
So you make yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And how
Right,
about that?
And you may go in
Creativity
different
school,
directions,
yeah.
but it's all the common core, the love
That's
of
awesome.
music.
Right,
Yeah.
and they all talk to each other. We have the same core, we have the same knowledge, and then they contribute, and it stays that community,
Right.
That's cool.
So that's the, yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to break down the set and give you a minute to relax out in the lobby a bit, and then Vlad's going to
couple
come back and play a
tunes.
couple tunes for us.
What do you think you want to play?
I have no
It's going to be
idea.
worth it.
Some blues.
You
some
just
jazz.
wing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's going to be worth it. And so guys, just give us about a few minutes here, and we'll be right back.
It'll be
in.
instant because
Yeah.
of the magic of television. We'll just be right back.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Let's do it.
Well, why don't you take us home with a tune of your choice,
Yeah. All right.
And but first,
Yeah.
where can they follow Vlad Debriansky?
Go to debriansky.com. DEVRIANSKY.
All right.
Yeah, that's my
And to see
website.
what's coming up and what's going on.
Yeah,
I know
there's
you
a-
had a brand new baby.
Brand new baby,
Maybe
brand
a little
new-
while before you hit the road.
Well, I have a new record out, so it's
Tell us about
we
it.
actually recorded at the Lubery Theater in Santa Barbara. It was a trio, and it was one of those places that you have to have a record because it's a beautiful theater. It's like a 150-year-old theater, and great sound. And we have Brian Collier on the drums. He's a funky drummer out of Confunction and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had a bass player, which I met and I played with him first time. Incredible bass player, Matthew Williams, and he is the guy who works with majority of R&B acts,
Mhm.
But beautiful. So we did.
Oh, that was the live album.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. It's the live album. It's selling mostly in Europe right now.
Yeah.
In the States, it's less, but in Europe, even though we did the album in the States, but in Europe, especially France, Italy, that's just
Right.
you keep sending.
Well, why don't you play something off of that? I know
Oh,
you
yeah.
don't have the backup, but
Yeah, but that's the idea of that album. Yeah,
All right.
so it's kind of interesting. All right, I'll play. Since we're in Texas, I'll play Texas
right.
Heat. It's called
Vlad Debriansky, everybody, check him out.
Texas Heat, that's where we're at. There you go.
All right. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
It's an
Thank you.
honor.
Thank you. It was a
And
pleasure.
thank you for being here too. Like, subscribe. We'll catch you next time.